Hello, I'm Becky McRae from Oklahoma.
And I'm Deb Brown from Iowa. Today, we're talking about community building. We'll share stories with you from your fellow small towns. You'll hear why these stories matter and how you can help build a stronger community in your own town. If you've got a comment, question, or even just a story to tell, please put it in the comment box below. We do answer questions personally.
The strength of community ties can really define who we are as small towns. No matter what the political or social differences that we have from our neighbors, we still have to live in the same town. We need to work on some common goals, and we will see each other around town. And I know that over my own lifetime, I've seen increasing political polarization has seeped into almost everything. So it's weakening our community ties. It's making it harder to work together, even on local projects. But there is something that we can do at the local level. We can help people see themselves as belonging to a community that cuts across political lines. It's a process of redefining our identities with local connections. Now, if you are in a wonderful town that doesn't have a lot of political divisions, then there might be other divisions around geography or around industry or even those hated school rivals. But so we all need to do some work building community because it's also one of our biggest strengths as small towns is our sense of community. But no one ever tells you how to build that sense of community. We just kind of assume that you have it naturally as a small town. But today, that's no longer a given. So, in fact, I think the way that we've learned to do things over the years, the way we've done things, actually hurts the strength of our community ties. So Deb is going to start us off by sharing the story of the old way of doing things. And it may feel like you're building community when you're actually not. And then she's going to share a little more effective way. So Deb?
Yes. When I was the chamber director in Webster City, Iowa, I got a lot of ideas on how to make my town a better place. One was to put up holiday lights in the trees downtown. I really liked the sound of that because it would encourage people to spend more time downtown and it would be a visible sign of improvement and pride in our community. So I called the city manager who liked the idea too. He went and had the city crews assigned to put up the lights. I thought I was building community, but I was still doing things the old way. The city manager and I had cut everybody else in the community out of the project that we thought was community building. How could I have created small but meaningful ways for people in the community to be part of lighting up downtown? Well, what if we let everyone pick a tree to decorate themselves? They wouldn't all match, but really, who cares? People who choose a tree and decorate it would share pictures online. They could talk about the fun they had doing it together. It would be a lasting experience that they actually shared together. Then the building owners might be inspired to decorate downtown buildings with lights. Other businesses could decorate their windows. But let's not stop with downtown. Let's just involve the entire community. People could decorate their houses or put lights in the windows of their apartments. If you couldn't do anything else, could you drag a light into the front window for just one night? Each single light in the window shows someone lives there that cares about their town. So that gets the lights up and it looks great, but we can do even more to bring the community together. Maybe someone would love the lights so much they wanted to bring the community to see them. They could post online and set a time for a walk around. And people who sing might want to be carolers. And they would just come and sing while everybody strolls around looking at the lights. And someone probably is going to want hot chocolate or hot cider just to keep people warm. You can see everyone would have a small but meaningful role in making this town a better place. They could take ownership, even just a little, and be proud of their participation and realize they could help build a stronger community just by doing even one small part of it.
The biggest insight that comes out of Deb's story about the holiday lights is you build a stronger community through experiences that bring people together across different groups to each play a small but meaningful role. So there's three important parts of that. It's the experiences, it's bringing people together across groups, and that meaningful role. So if you're familiar with our idea-friendly method that we use here at Savior.Town, then you will recognize it, because you gather your crowd for those shared experiences, and then you build connections between people across different groups, and you give everyone a small but meaningful role to take small steps. Now, here's what's behind this concept. Adults learn by not by doing, but by reflecting on what we have done. And so experiences give people something to reflect on so that we can learn and change those old behaviors and old attitudes, and ultimately reshape our values in a positive way. So when an experience connects us outside of our usual groups, then that helps us get past those bitter dividing lines. When we do something that a member of the community might do, we start to see ourselves as a member of the community. See, we develop that new identity, and giving each person a small but meaningful role makes the experience our own. We are part of it, so we care more about it. So when all three pieces are there, then you're changing the way people see themselves, and the way they think, and the way they act, and the way they are within your community. Now, just like the holiday lights in the trees, you can apply this to any project in turning it into a community building opportunity. And you do that by including all three parts. It's an experience, it brings people together across groups, and it gives everyone a small but meaningful role. So I want you to take a moment, pick up your pen, and write down a project that you are already doing. Now, this might be an event or an activity or a goal or a fundraiser or a beautification project, anything that you're working on. And not one that you wish you could do someday, but something that you know you will be working on soon. Just a couple of words so that you know which project you mean. So write that down right now. Now, as we go through and share more examples of community building, you can listen for inspiration, ways that you could apply these concepts to the project that you just wrote down. And you can hit pause anytime in the video if you want more time to jot down some notes or to think about how this would apply for you. You can even go back to the very beginning, pick a whole different project, and go through the whole video again and make notes on that project too.
So for our next example, let's turn to the rock hunt. Bolivar, Missouri started a rock hunt a few years ago. Now, you've probably heard of other towns that do these. People paint rocks with cute or inspirational messages and sayings. Then they hide them around town. If you find one, you post a picture of it on Facebook. Then you can decide to hide it again in a new place, or maybe you want to keep it and make a new rock to hide. Kids and parents, families, people of all ages were out walking around the park and downtown, spending hours together. And people from different groups from all across the community helped by painting rocks. Nursing home residents painted rocks. City officials painted rocks. Everyone was painting rocks. Suzanne Sparks, the organizer, said, "It's an art movement. We were just looking to spread a little joy, and we did. It united the town." That's a positive kind of community experience.
Okay, as long as we've got people to work painting things, then why don't we paint a big mural together? In Lincoln, Illinois, which has a population of about 14,000, Mayor Keith Snyder told us how the community painted a pair of murals back in the early 2010s. See, this was shortly after the Great Recession, and the community was struggling to recover, like a lot of smaller towns were then and now. So they chose two railroad viaducts, you know, where the road goes under the rails, to be the setting for these murals. Now, the designs were created by a local college art professor and designed specifically to be easy for volunteers to help with it, like almost like paint by numbers, right? Just fill in the outlines, like coloring pages, you know? So a small group of artists created those outlines, and then the volunteers could actually pick their own colors and fill them in the way they wanted. And one of the mural designs was all these smiling flowers was what the plan. So they actually just let the volunteers draw in smiling faces the way they liked to, you know, and if somebody put something that was bad, then, you know, you can paint over it. It's just paint. So Now, it did turn out wonderful, and the community came together to make it happen. And now residents are so proud. They take visitors to see the murals. High school seniors started taking senior pictures in front of them. So almost anyone in the community could experience being part of doing the actual painting of that mural instead of just watching. So they actually played a small but meaningful role.
That's a great idea. You know, Becky, I'm working in Montana on a 2-year project. One town I visited in person last year was the town of Crow Agency, population 1,600. I met Charlene there, and she's a member of the Crow tribe and also president of a local organization called Plenty Doors. They focus on poverty, housing, and improving their cultural identity. As we sat outside and visited, she mentioned she'd like to inspire a community-wide cleanup. Like in many small towns, she said local people just tend to expect the local government to take care of cleanups. Now, Charlene had some money in her budget for this cleanup. We talked about the best way to spend it and build community at the same time. Now, she said she could just pay somebody to clean up yards for people, but she'd rather hold a contest, let people clean up their own yards and give a big chunk of the money as a prize to the cleanest yards. That would easily get more people actively involved. I suggested getting even more people involved. Why not give a little money to everyone who participates? You could allow everyone a week to clean up their own yard, then give each family that takes part $100. That's an amount that makes a difference to these families and will generate more spending back in the community. She could also buy some yard signs that say things like best improvement and hardest workers and proud of the Crow tribe and lots more positive messages, and put those signs in the yards out for a week. Now, along with the improvement in people's yards, the signs are a visible symbol of the new community spirit she's working hard to get towards. Now, this becomes really a true community project with many people participating instead of just the same ones that usually win every contest. There are plenty of roles, both big and small, for everyone. Families can work together. Small children can pick up bottles to be recycled, even if it's just one bottle.
I love the getting down to just pick up one bottle, right? Like any improvement we're excited about. So another highly visible community pride project comes to us from Lincoln, Illinois. This is that town that did the community painted mural. They also created a plant the town red, not paint the town red, plant the town red project. They encouraged everyone to plant red tulips in front yards and public spaces. And so together they put out over 40,000 red tulips that are now in the ground in Lincoln. And then to make it even more visible, they aligned a lot of the public thoroughfares as well. And you know, you can actually dig and divide tulip bulbs. So this is one project that can just keep growing and growing after that initial investment. Another town, Doug Penrice told us about a temporary pride project that brought a town together. And this was in 2017 when Canada was celebrating the 150th anniversary. So a group of volunteers in Halton Hills wanted to claim the title, Most Patriotic Town in Canada, by flying the most Canadian flags. Now, Doug said this was actually just pretty much a self-proclaimed title, but it turned into a great project and brought the whole town together, Doug said. Generally, Canadians are more reserved about things like this than our American cousins, he says. So their goal was just to get 15,000 flags flying across the town. So for 2 months, they talked about it to everybody in town. They encourage everyone, put up flags, and they set up a website where you can register any of the flags that you've posted so they could get a count. So he says the town was ablaze with the Canadian maple leaf. There were full-size flags on stands in people's yards. There were strings of pennants in windows downtown and the businesses. If you put up a kid's hand-drawn flag, I'm sure they would count that as well. So at the deadline, their community had risen to the challenge. They registered 57,073 flags. That is almost 4 times that original goal. So Doug said this project caught the imagination of our residents, and most importantly, it brought our community together and was a fun project to work on. So if it feels like flags are a bit too political, then one way to modify that would be maybe fly your state flag, or you have a territorial flag, or just pick a local symbol, or even just pick a color for your community to rally behind. Okay, our next project is one to rally community support behind your local small businesses, and it's cash mobs. Cash mob is just a group of regular people who all decide to support the same local business at the same time. So picture you and 10 friends going into the hardware store, each with $25 you're going to spend there. So think how excited you'll be as a group, and then how surprised the merchant will be to have this whole group of new people in the building, and how much of a difference you will make in their day's sales totals. Now, for safety right now, pandemic, then you don't have to do it all in person at the same time right now. It could be spread across a couple of days, or it could include online or phoned in orders too. So here's the details of how you do it: that you just pick one business at a time. So you concentrate your results in one place. And choose wisely. Pick that beloved business that everyone will love to support, like the pharmacy, where the owner has been a pillar of the community and a friend of the family to everyone in town. Or pick something that will be fun. Luling, Texas picked the liquor store for a cash mob. So set an amount that's enough to matter, but not so much that it seems like a lot to spend. So $20 might be a good starting point, or maybe in your town, $5 is right. Just that's okay. Do what works for your town. And people who aren't comfortable spending money right now can actually help with the next step that needs to be done, which is get the word out. So go online and pick up the telephone and text your friends and do whatever will work to reach people in your town. And then pick another business and do it again. Now, the organizers of one of the very first cash mobs said that they measured their success by having one newcomer, one person they didn't know personally who participated. That would mean that they had reached outside their initial circle of friends, again, connecting people across different groups. So you're building a sense of community around supporting local businesses, shopping in local stores. You're making people more aware of what's available locally, and you're giving your merchants a boost. So cash mobs actually went really viral a few years ago, and they were everywhere, but now the buzz has really died down. But that doesn't mean they aren't great fun and worth the effort to create.
Well, in Franklin County, Iowa, the chamber started a buy one product local campaign that also ended up building community. We chose toilet paper. That's the one product all of us need. At the chamber, we did a year-long campaign using all the tools you can think of to get the word out, both offline and online. We did posters and radio and TV, and even made a special website. Chamber Director Brooke and I made toilet paper displays that we took to every local event and fair and festival for that year. The local businesses definitely got on board, and they didn't just do signs. Lots of them did creative displays. The hardware store went all out with a display from their plumbing department. They built a stick man out of PVC pipe and set it, you guessed it, on a toilet. Businesses who didn't sell toilet paper also found creative ways to use toilet paper in their advertising. The used car dealer gave away a year's supply of toilet paper when you bought a car. The local radio station told toilet paper jokes. They were awful. Facebook was filled with stories of people shopping for toilet paper, pictures included. Now, while the campaign was going on that year, everyone in town was talking about toilet paper. They were redefining themselves as people who supported their community, all because they bought their toilet paper locally. Another Iowa story comes from Akron, Iowa. They wanted to replace their old swimming pool. Now they've started the typical capital campaign and people are giving, but that's not something everyone can participate in. Not everyone has that kind of money to give. The students wanted to be able to give too. After all, they'd be using the pool the most. Two high school students from the National Honor Society came up with a way to get younger students involved. They went to the elementary grades and started a penny war between the classes. Now, a penny war means students bring in as many pennies as they can find, and the class with the most pennies at the end of the contest wins. The mayor said kids came up with all kinds of ways to find pennies, and we're having so much fun doing it. Parents, grandparents, neighbors, businesses, students, everybody worked together to scrounge up pennies from all over town. Then they got together to count their pennies, and boy, every penny did matter. Each kid knew that they played a small but meaningful part in replacing their pool.
Next, I want to turn to look at how we do special events and whether we remember to include community building in it. So I'm going to start by sharing a concert from my county, and then Deb's got a concert from her town to talk about. So the first concert happened at an agritourism business that's not very far away from me. They brought in a couple of professional musicians for performances out at the farm. Now, the musicians were really pretty well known. They had been on TV shows that you'd heard of, but the turnout to the concerts was not that great. So a friend of the owner actually went on Facebook and pointed out that classic small town contradiction that we all face. People keep saying there's nothing to do in this town, and then when we do put on something special, they don't turn out to support it. Now, I'm sure that you have run into this too with your special events. You work really hard on creating an event that is exactly what people said they wanted, and then only this tiny crowd shows up. The community then complains, oh, it was boring, or it was not a convenient time. I couldn't come then, or, it just didn't really sound like something I wanted to do. And so you end up incredibly frustrated.
So the other concert happened in my town. 25-year-old Mike walked into my office and said, "We need to have more live music in town." And I responded, "You betcha, we sure do. What are you going to do about it?" Well, that threw him. He just assumed the chamber would make it happen. We sat down that day and we talked about things like who were his friends who would participate with him and make it happen? What kind of event would they want to put together? What kind of equipment did they need? Where are they going to do it? Inside or outside? Who could help with marketing? How would they even get started? Is there a smaller way to do this the first time? Well, Michael and his friends loved the idea of having an open mic, and they could be the band behind the performers. Michael came back and asked, "Deb, is that okay?" And I responded, "I don't know. Is that okay?" He was starting to understand this was going to be his and his buddy's event, and they were building it together. And they created Music in the Park, and they involved a whole lot of people in small but meaningful roles. The guys designed their own posters and ads. Lots of people came with lawn chairs and listened to 3 hours of music. Several folks came on stage and sang or played or performed. One guy showed up from another town with lights and set them up so they could continue doing music in the dark. And he wasn't asked to come. He just heard about it and thought his lights might be helpful. Everybody had so much fun. They decided, let's do it, Music in the Park, 3 more times over the summer. Now, the music brought together people from across different parts of the community. They did share the experience of making and enjoying live music together. And everybody had a small but meaningful role in creating it. All these ideas have focused on individuals. So this last one helps you build a community of organizations, and it's called Coffee and Calendars. So here's what you do. You invite some people for coffee. People like members of your town council, your chamber of commerce, your school board, your county government, any organization that's related to yours, and ask them to bring their organization calendars. Now you can go somewhere together and get some coffee. You could even Zoom this. Let someone from each group go over their calendar and tell what they have going on. That's it. Just share some coffee and calendars. Once you have it up and going, open it up to all kinds of community groups, like the local boards and leaders and churches and organization clubs, everyone, and just have them bring their calendars too. There's really no pressure to do anything, but show up with your calendar. So that's a small but meaningful role. The only goals at first are to share what you have planned and to get to know each other. Later, people will start naturally talking about maybe cooperating on a project or doing some shared projects, or even noticing they have shared goals. Then maybe even later, people can talk about building community. The goal isn't to make a combined calendar of all the community events. Do not try to replace the coffee time with an online calendar app. It's about the experience of connecting people across different groups. Now, Cheyenne from Wall, South Dakota, told us that they held a coffee and calendars back in 2016. She said the event was a success. About 10 community members joined the meeting, shared their calendar, and enjoyed coffee and conversation. This was a community need that is now filled. We look forward to coffee and calendar events and continued community collaboration.
I love coffee and calendars. And Deb, you actually did that in Webster City.
We did. We ran out of time because people were so enjoying hearing what their other organizations were doing. We learned so much about each other that we just assumed we knew, and we didn't.
Absolutely. Each of the projects that we've talked about today directly benefited the community, whether it was money was raised for the pool, or you had cleaner yards at the end, or there's better coordination between the different groups. Those are all benefits direct to the community. But each one of these projects also indirectly benefited the community by making it stronger. This created those experiences that brought people together across different groups to each play a meaningful role. So together, these experiences provide indirect benefits like common ground, a sense of pride and ownership, proving that everyone can help to save your town, engendering that sense of community responsibility and putting some deposits into that social capital bank account that has been depleted by any past conflict. So remember, you build a stronger community through experiences that bring people together across different groups to each play a small but meaningful role. We want to leave you with one final story of community building, and this comes from Delmont, South Dakota, population 234. It was struck by a tornado in 2015, and several people were injured, and everyone's lives were disrupted, and they were living a shared experience of the very worst kind. But cleanup and repairs, of course, started, and the town slowly made progress on recovering. So community members were meeting regularly to talk through all of the ongoing recovery efforts. And Kenny Sharon, who's with South Dakota State University at that time with the Center for Community Vitality, he was there for those meetings, and he shared this story with us. At one of those community meetings, he suggested they consider doing an art project to help people bring people together and to continue that healing process. Now, they liked the idea and decided to make something that they could hang in the trees around town as a visible symbol of their recovery process. So they chose the cardinal, which is a symbol of death, birth, and renewal. So some people got together and they made a template for wooden cardinals. Students in the high school shop class used that template and helped cut out over 1,000 cardinals. So community groups like the Girl Scouts got together and held cardinal painting parties. Volunteers added the hangers to the cardinals, and then everyone in town could contribute in a small but meaningful way. You could be helping to make the birds, painting, hanging them up. If you would even agree to let us host the bird in your tree on your property, then you're playing a part. So together, the 234 people of Delmont hung handmade cardinals in over 1,400 trees. So the people made their own new experience together. They were seeing the spark of color, thinking of that symbolism, and feeling the sense of community recovery.
Wow. Okay, everybody, don't forget to let us know your ideas. Share your own stories and ask questions below in the comment box. We do answer them personally. Thank you. I am Deb Brown from Iowa.
And I'm Becky McRae from Oklahoma. Thank you.